Nancy Pelosi just made the catastrophic mistake of trying to outsmart Ted Cruz in a Senate hearing, and she watched her entire three-decade legacy get systematically dismantled by a man wielding nothing but 37 yellow sticky notes and a copy of her own book. $30 million. That is the documented amount Paul Pelosi gained in stock trades during the 4 years his wife was Speaker of the House of Representatives. $30 million. 18 of those individual trades, by independent journalistic tracking, occurred within 60 days of congressional action that directly affected the stocks being traded. The Speaker had access to the congressional schedule. The Speaker had access to classified briefings. The Speaker shared a bedroom with the trader. All of it legal according to the current Stock Act. None of it explained. 26 minutes ago, Senator Ted Cruz walked into hearing room 255 of the Russell Senate Office Building. He brought one hardcover book. The book was Nancy Pelosi's own memoir, Know Your Power, A Message to America's Daughters, published in 2008. 247 pages. Hardcover. Doubleday. The book had 37 yellow sticky notes, fanning out from the right side of the pages. One sticky note for every passage where Speaker Pelosi had written, in her own words, about integrity, about transparency, about accountability, about the moral obligations of public service. Senator Cruz had brought no witnesses. He did not need any. He had the author's own words. Across the witness table, he looked at former Speaker Nancy Pelosi over the book in his hand. His voice was the prosecutorial voice he had used in 15 years, arguing at the Texas Solicitor General's office. Texas measured, Harvard law precise. Madam Speaker, 3 decades, $30 million, 37 sticky notes, 1 book. Hit that like button and subscribe. Because in the next 43 minutes, you are going to watch a senator from Texas read Nancy Pelosi's own book back to her, page by page, sticky note by sticky note, and ask her on a federal microphone the only question that matters. Did you live by the words you wrote? Let's go back 26 minutes to the moment Nancy Pelosi made the worst mistake any politician can make in front of a litigator with her own book. She tried to play the historian. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi wore a cream-colored suit, designer cut, structured shoulders, a small string of pearls at her collar. Her gold Italian pen sat on the bench in front of her, next to a small leather notebook. The notebook was open to the first page. Her handwriting was visible. She had been speaking for 3 minutes. The hearing was titled, Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Hearing on Public Trust, in Government Officials Examining 3 Decades of Conduct. It was held in hearing room 255 of the Russell Senate Office Building. The room was a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing room. Wood-paneled, high ceilings. 5.1 million Americans were watching the hearing live. Pelosi was not done with her opening attack. With respect to the senator from Texas, she said, the famous Pelosi smile was on, tight-lipped, measured, and I do mean respect, because I respect anyone who has had to face the voters of a state as large as Texas. She paused. The cable news instinct kicked in. I find it instructive that the senator chairing this examination of public trust has himself a complicated history with public trust. The senator's 2021 trip to Cancun during the Texas winter storm, while 4.8 million of his constituents were without electricity. The senator's wife and 2 daughters at a 4-star resort. The senator's blame, initially, of his children for the trip. Her voice was the practiced voice she had used in cable news interviews for 20 years. Senator Cruz, with respect, when we discuss public trust today, members of the committee should remember that the senator's own constituents have a vivid memory of the trust they did not receive from his office in February of 2021, during the coldest week in Texas history. She continued, the tight-lipped smile holding position. And I would also note, Senator Cruz, that this examination of my conduct is being led by a senator from a tradition that has historically treated Catholic women in leadership with a certain skepticism. As a daughter of a Catholic immigrant family from Baltimore, as a woman who has served in this Congress for 37 years, as the first woman Speaker of the House of Representatives, I have heard the dog whistles, Senator. I have heard them my entire career. She sat back, adjusted the pearls at her collar. I would ask the committee to consider today whether the questions being asked are the questions of a public servant or the questions of a man who has never reconciled himself to a woman holding the gavel. In the wings, her communications director nodded. The communications director was a woman named Jorge Aguilar. She had been with Pelosi since 2015. What Pelosi did not know was this: the man across the witness table had spent the previous evening in his Senate office working alone with one staff member. He had not brought a folder of papers. He had not brought speech notes. He had not brought a binder. He had brought one hardcover book. The book was Nancy Pelosi's book. He had brought one fountain pen. He had brought one small glass with ice water, neat. The book sat on the witness table. 37 yellow sticky notes fanned out from its right side. The book was open to page 47. Across the aisle, Senator Ted Cruz did not respond. He set down his glass of water, picked up the hardcover book, and held it up so the cameras could see. The 37 yellow sticky notes were visible, tabbed neatly, each one labeled in pencil, page number, chapter title. The cameras zoomed in. He set the book down on the bench, open to page 47. The first yellow sticky note was visible at the top of the page. 17 seconds passed. Cruz turned the microphone toward himself. His voice was the prosecutorial voice he had honed over 8 Supreme Court oral arguments. Texas measured, Harvard law, precise. Madam Speaker, thank you. I will address your 2 points quickly so we can get to your book. He took a small breath. First, Cancun, February 2021. I went to Cancun for 1 day. I returned that night when the criticism started. The trip was a mistake. I have said so publicly 11 separate times on the record. The mistake does not erase the acknowledgement. Madam Speaker, it is the public record. It is searchable. He paused. Second, the religious dog whistle. I am a Southern Baptist. My father is a Cuban Catholic immigrant. Half my family is Catholic. My wife was raised Catholic. I do not have, Madam Speaker, the views of Catholic women in leadership that you have just attributed to me. I find the attribution disappointing. I will not respond to it further. He picked up the hardcover book again and held it up. Today, Madam Speaker, the committee asked me to walk through the documented record of your 3 decades of conduct as a member of Congress, as Speaker of the House of Representatives, as the longest-serving female speaker in American history. He set the book down. To do that, I have brought one book. The book is your book. Know Your Power. A Message to America's Daughters. Published by Doubleday, 2008. 247 pages. Hardcover. He turned the book slightly. The 37 yellow sticky notes were visible. The cameras zoomed. The book has 37 yellow sticky notes, one for each page where you, Madam Speaker, wrote about integrity, about transparency, about accountability, about the moral obligations of public service. He let it sit. I want to be clear, Madam Speaker. I am not going to read from any other source today. No conservative think tank reports, no Republican opposition research, no anonymous sources. The only source today is your book. His voice dropped slightly. Your own words, Madam Speaker. Your own page. He turned to the first sticky note. The camera zoomed on the open page. Page 47. Chapter 3. The chapter is titled in your own typesetting, quote, "The Politics of Integrity," end quote. Page 47, line 12. You wrote in your own hand, quote, "Integrity in public service is not a virtue. It is a prerequisite. The American people deserve to know that the men and women they elect to lead them are governed first and foremost by an unbreakable commitment to the truth," end quote. He set the book down, open to page 47, the yellow sticky note visible. Madam Speaker, we are going to walk through 4 examples of how the prerequisite you wrote about on page 47 was applied in your own 3-decade career. We will start with $30 million in stock trades. Cruz turned to the second sticky note. The cameras followed his hand. Madam Speaker, page 89, Chapter 5. The chapter is titled, quote, "Public Service is a Public Trust," end quote. He read slowly, prosecutorial cadence. Page 89, line 7. You wrote, quote, "The most precious commodity any public servant has is the trust of the people. That trust is built slowly over decades. It is destroyed quickly by a single act of self-enrichment," end quote. He set the book down, open to page 89. Madam Speaker, your own words about self-enrichment, about the destruction of public trust. He paused. Now, Madam Speaker, the documented record. He took a sip of his water and set it down. Your husband, Mr. Paul Pelosi, operates an investment firm called Financial Leasing Services Incorporated. Public corporate filings. He has been an active investor for 40 years. He is, by any measure, a successful investor. During the 4 years you served as Speaker of the House of Representatives, from January 2019 to January 2023, Mr. Pelosi's documented stock trading gains by congressional financial disclosure filings that you yourself filed with the Office of the Clerk totaled approximately $30 million. He let it sit. $30 million, Madam Speaker, in 4 years, significantly outperforming the S&P 500 by, according to independent analysis, approximately 53 percentage points. The Wall Street Journal called it, quote, "the best-performing portfolio in Congress," end quote. He turned a page in his own notes. I want to walk through one specific trade, Madam Speaker, because the timing is what concerns the country watching this hearing. He paused, looked up at her. The 15th of July, 2022, Mr. Pelosi purchased 20,000 call options on Nvidia Corporation. The total face value of the position was approximately $5 million. 3 weeks later, the 9th of August 2022, the United States Senate passed the CHIPS and Science Act by a vote of 64 to 33. The CHIPS Act provided $52 billion in federal subsidies for the American semiconductor industry. Nvidia Corporation is, by market capitalization, the largest American semiconductor company. He took a sip of water, set it down. Nvidia stock rose 19% in the 4 months that followed. The call options Mr. Pelosi purchased gained, by your own financial disclosure filings, approximately $4 million. $4 million, Madam Speaker, in 4 months. On a position taken 3 weeks before the largest semiconductor subsidy bill in American history. He picked up the book, held it briefly, and set it down again. Madam Speaker, yes or no? As Speaker of the House, did you have access to the Senate's CHIPS Act floor schedule in July of 2022? Pelosi adjusted the pearls at her collar. The tight-lipped smile held. The voice came back, practiced. Senator, the answer to that question is more complicated than yes or no. Madam Speaker, yes or no? Did you have access to the Senate's CHIPS Act floor schedule in July of 2022? Yes. As Speaker, I had access to the legislative calendar? Thank you. Yes or no? Did you discuss legislative business with your husband in your home as Speaker of the House? Senator, that question intrudes on the privacy of a marriage. Madam Speaker, yes or no? Did you discuss legislative business with your husband? Occasionally, yes. Thank you. Yes or no? Was Mr. Pelosi aware that the CHIPS Act was a major legislative priority of your speakership in July of 2022? He read the newspapers, Senator, as did every American. Madam Speaker, yes or no? Yes. Cruz let it sit. He took one sip of his water, set the glass down. Thank you. Madam Speaker, the trust you wrote about on page 89 of your own book, the most precious commodity any public servant has. You wrote that in 2008. Did you, Madam Speaker, in July of 2022, 12 years after writing those words, take steps to ensure that the trust you described was protected from the appearance of self-enrichment? The tight-lipped smile was thinner now. Pelosi straightened in her chair. Senator Cruz, with respect, she spoke slowly, lawyerly. The Stock Act of 2012, which I supported and voted for, which is the public record, established a clear framework for member of Congress financial disclosure. Mr. Pelosi and I have for 14 years fully complied with every requirement of the Stock Act. Every trade is disclosed within the statutory window. Every gift is reported. Every conflict is addressed. She paused. The Stock Act, Senator, is the law that this Congress passed. Mr. Pelosi has not broken any law. I have not broken any law. The suggestion that lawful financial activity, fully disclosed under federal statute, is somehow improper is a suggestion that, with respect, has no basis in American law. The progressive press section moved. Two reporters wrote Stock Act in their notebooks. The Atlantic correspondent in the third row wrote a longer note. Cruz waited until she was done. He picked up the hardcover book. Madam Speaker, you said the Stock Act was passed in 2012 by the Congress you led as Speaker. He paused. You are correct. He turned to a different sticky note in the book. The camera zoomed. Madam Speaker, in 2023, the Senate introduced legislation called the Pelosi Act. The acronym stands for Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investments. The Pelosi Act would have banned members of Congress and their immediate family members from trading individual stocks while in office. He looked up at her. Yes or no, Madam Speaker, did you publicly oppose the Pelosi Act? Senator, I expressed concerns about provisions of the bill that, Madam Speaker, yes or no. Did you publicly oppose the Pelosi Act? Yes. I had concerns about the bill? Thank you. Cruz turned to the next sticky note. Page 112. He set the book down, open. Madam Speaker, page 112 of your own book, Chapter 6, titled, quote, Leadership Requires Reform, Even When Reform is Uncomfortable, end quote. Page 112. Line 3, you wrote, quote, True leadership is not measured by the systems a leader inherits. It is measured by the systems a leader is willing to reform, especially when those reforms threaten the leader's own position, end quote. He looked up. The camera zoomed on his face. Your own words, Madam Speaker. Your own page. The systems that, quote, threaten the leader's own position, end quote, are exactly the systems that in 2023 you publicly opposed reforming. The Pelosi Act would have applied to your own husband's trading. You opposed it. He let it sit. In plain English, Madam Speaker, you wrote in 2008 that true leaders reform the systems that benefit them. In 2023, when given the chance, You oppose the reform that would have applied to you. The country watching this hearing is allowed to notice the difference. He picked up the book, held it briefly, set it down. Page 112, Madam Speaker. Page 112. The hearing room was quiet. Hit that like button if you have ever in your life heard a senator from Texas read Nancy Pelosi's own book back to her about the systems leaders should reform. Comment $30 million if you remember the Nvidia call options. Subscribe because the next sticky note is about a hair salon in San Francisco in August of 2020 when Nancy Pelosi was not wearing a mask indoors during a citywide lockdown. Cruz turned to the next sticky note, page 134. The cameras followed his hand. Madam Speaker. Page 134. Chapter 7. The chapter is titled, quote, "The Same Rules for Everyone," end quote. He read slowly. Page 134. Line 9. You wrote, quote, "The strength of American democracy depends on a single, simple principle. The leader follows the same rules as the led. Anything less is monarchy dressed up as republic," end quote. He set the book down, opened to page 134, the yellow sticky note visible. Madam Speaker, the same rules for everyone. The leader follows the same rules as the led. Anything less is monarchy dressed up as republic. Your own words, page 134, 2008. He paused. Now, the documented record. He took a sip of his water, set it down. The 31st of August 2020, San Francisco, California. The San Francisco Department of Public Health had, as of that date, ordered all indoor hair salons closed to the public. The order had been in effect for 5 months. The order was based on COVID-19 transmission concerns. It applied to every resident of San Francisco, every salon, every customer, without exception. The order was, by your own city's standard, the same rules for everyone. He turned a page. On the 31st of August 2020, at approximately 315 inches the afternoon, you entered Salon Hair Salon, located at 1717 Union Street, San Francisco. You received an indoor wash and blow-dry service. You were not wearing a mask during the interior portion of the visit. The duration of the visit was approximately 45 minutes. He let it sit. The visit was captured on the salon's interior security camera system. The footage was, in the days that followed, made public. He turned a page. 2 days later, the 2nd of September 2020, you held a press conference. You said, quote, "I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon. I have been there over the years many times. When they said they were able to accommodate people one person at a time, and that we could be there, I trusted that." End quote. He paused. Then you said, "I think this salon owes me an apology for setting me up." End quote. He set his notes down, looked at Pelosi. Madam Speaker, the salon owner. Her name is Erica Kias. She is a Vietnamese-American small business owner. She had operated e-salon for 12 years before your visit. He paused. After the footage went public, after your press conference, Ms. Kias received death threats. The threats continued for weeks. Her business closed within 90 days. She moved out of San Francisco. He let it sit. The hearing room was quiet. Madam Speaker, yes or no? Was Ms. Kias aware that you would be visiting her salon on August 31st? Pelosi adjusted her pearls. The tight-lipped smile was thinner. Senator, the arrangement was made through my staff. Madam Speaker, yes or no? I cannot speak to what Ms. Kias knew. My staff made the arrangement. Thank you. Yes or no? Were the San Francisco indoor salon ordinances in effect on the 31st of August 2020? Yes. Yes or no? Did you, in your public statement of September 2nd, accuse Ms. Caius of setting you up? Senator, the framing of that question, Madam Speaker, yes or no? Did you accuse Miss Caius of setting you up? I used the phrase set up, yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Cruz picked up the hardcover book, turned to the next sticky note, page 201. Madam Speaker, page 201 of your own book, chapter 10, titled, quote, Accountability is the first word of leadership, end quote. Page 201, line 15, you wrote, quote, A leader who blames others for the consequences of her own decisions is not yet a leader, end quote. He set the book down, open to page 201, your own words, Madam Speaker, page 201, a leader who blames others. On the 2nd of September 2020, you blamed Miss Caius for setting you up. He let it sit. The hearing room was silent. Page 201, Madam Speaker. The page is in your own book. The tight-lipped smile flickered. Pelosi straightened in her chair. Senator, the Salon visit was a misunderstanding. I was given assurances by my staff that the Salon was operating under modified protocols. The Salon owner, who was not present at the time of my visit, did record the visit on her interior camera system without consent. Miss Caius' release of the footage was in itself a violation of California consumer privacy law. The matter, Senator, has been litigated in the press for 4 years. There is no new information here, with respect. The progressive press section clapped once. 2 reporters looked uncomfortable. Cruz waited until she was done. He took 1 sip of his water, set the glass down. Madam Speaker, you said one thing in there I want to repeat back. You said the matter has been, quote, litigated in the press for 4 years. There is no new information here, end quote. He paused. That is a remarkable sentence, Madam Speaker. I want every American watching this hearing to listen to it slowly. You just said that the Salon visit from 4 years ago has no new information. He let it sit. Madam Speaker, the new information is your own book. The new information is that in 2008, you wrote in your own hand that leaders follow the same rules as the led. The new information is that 12 years later you did not. The new information is that 2 days after the visit you blamed Miss Caius. The new information is that 4 years after that you are sitting in this committee telling the country that there is no new information. He picked up the book, held it up briefly. There is, Madam Speaker. The information is in your book. The book is on this bench. The pages are marked. The country can read them tonight. The hearing room stayed quiet. Comment same rules for everyone. If you have ever in your life watched a senator from Texas read Nancy Pelosi's own book back to her about a hair salon, about a Vietnamese-American small business owner, about 4 years of refusing to apologize. Subscribe, because the next sticky note is about a State of the Union speech from February 2020, about 6 pieces of torn paper. Cruz turned to the next sticky note. Page 157. The cameras followed his hand. Madam Speaker, page 157. Chapter 8. The chapter is titled, quote, Respecting the Office Even When You Disagree with the Office Holder, end quote. He read slowly. Page 157, line 2. You wrote, quote, The institutions of American government depend on a kind of civic ritual. We honor the office even when we disagree with the person holding it. To do otherwise is to chip away at the foundation of the republic itself, end quote. He set the book down. Open to page 157. Madam Speaker, the institutions of American government. Civic ritual. honoring the office even when you disagree with the office holder. Your own words. Page 157, 2008. He paused. Now, the documented record. He took a sip of his water, set it down. The 4th of February 2020. The President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, delivered his third State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress in the chamber of the House of Representatives. The address was approximately 78 minutes long. It was broadcast live by all major American networks. The audience, by Nielsen ratings, was approximately 37 million American viewers. He turned a page. As Speaker of the House of Representatives, you sat directly behind the President. You held a paper copy of his address. At the conclusion of the address, as the chamber stood for applause, you rose from your seat. You held up the paper copy of the address. You tore the paper methodically into 6 pieces on national television. Behind the President, as he was still standing at the podium, he took a sip of water. Madam Speaker, yes or no? In the 230-year history of the United States State of the Union Address as an institution of American government, had any Speaker of the House ever publicly destroyed a copy of a sitting president's address in the chamber of the House of Representatives during the ceremony? Pelosi adjusted her pearls. The tight-lipped smile was thinner still. Senator, the presidents of the modern State of the Union, Madam Speaker, yes or no? Not to my knowledge. Thank you. So you were the first in 230 years. I was the first speaker to use that gesture. Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. He let it sit. Madam Speaker, page 157 of your own book. The institutions of American government depend on a kind of civic ritual. We honor the office even when we disagree with the person holding it. Your words, 2008. 12 years later, the 4th of February 2020. On national television, in front of 37 million American viewers, you tore the official paper copy of the President's State of the Union address into 6 pieces behind him as the chamber stood for applause. He paused. In plain English, Madam Speaker, you did the opposite of what your own book said. You wrote in 2008 that civic ritual must be respected. In 2020, you violated the ritual. The country watched. The tight-lipped smile flickered. Pelosi leaned forward slightly. Senator Cruz, I have spoken to this matter publicly multiple times. The address by the former president contained, in my judgment, multiple statements that were not accurate. Statements that, by my count, included approximately 26 factual misrepresentations. She continued, lawyerly cadence. As Speaker of the House presiding over the chamber, I had a constitutional obligation to register my disagreement. I chose to do so after the President had concluded by tearing my own copy of the address, which I had been given as Speaker as a personal copy. My copy, Senator, not the official copy. The official congressional copy remained intact in the chamber's archives. I tore my personal copy as a gesture of disagreement after the speech was complete. She paused. The smile reasserted itself. The gesture was, and I have said this publicly, the courteous thing to do considering the alternative. The Progressive Press section clapped 3 times. A producer in the back stood up. Cruz did not interrupt. The applause faded. He picked up his glass of water, took 1 sip, set it down. Madam Speaker, you said one phrase I want to repeat back. You said the gesture was, quote, the courteous thing to do considering the alternative, end quote. He paused. Madam Speaker, the courteous thing to do. In Texas, where I come from, courteous is a word with weight. It means showing respect in the moment, without conditions. He let it sit, tearing a paper into 6 pieces on national television behind a sitting President of the United States during the ceremony of the State of the Union is not the courteous thing to do. The courteous thing to do, Madam Speaker, is to sit in your chair, to wait until the speech is over, to register your disagreement through the means provided by the Constitution, which is debate on the House floor the next day or the next week. From your own podium, you chose instead to use national television and the body language of the Speaker's chair to send a message that no speaker had sent in 230 years. He picked up the hardcover book. The camera zoomed. Madam Speaker, page 157 of your own book. We honor the office, even when we disagree with the person holding it. To do otherwise is to chip away at the foundation of the Republic itself. He paused. On the 4th of February 2020, you chipped away at the foundation of the Republic. Your own description, Madam Speaker, from your own book of what you did. Page 157. The hearing room was silent. Comment 6 pieces if you remember the night Nancy Pelosi made history by doing the opposite of what her own book said. Subscribe, because the next sticky note is the heaviest one. About the 6th of January 2021. About a Capitol Police officer named Brian Sicknick. About a National Guard request that Nancy Pelosi declined. Cruz turned to the last sticky note. The book was nearly at the end. Page 223. The yellow sticky note was visible. Madam Speaker, page 223. Chapter 11. The chapter is titled, quote, Leadership Means Bearing the Cost, end quote. He read slowly. The cadence was the slowest it had been all morning. Page 223, line 8. You wrote, quote, The hardest test of leadership is not the moment of triumph. It is the moment when a leader's decision costs someone else their safety, their livelihood, their life. In that moment, the leader must answer publicly, completely, without evasion. End quote. He set the book down, open to page 223. Madam Speaker, the hardest test of leadership. The moment when a leader's decision costs someone else their life. In that moment, the leader must answer publicly, completely, without evasion. Your own words. Page 223. He paused. The hearing room was already quieter than it had been all morning. Now, the documented record. He took a sip of his water, set it down, picked up a folder of papers next to the book. The folder contained the Sund letter. On the 1st of February 2021, United States Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund, who had resigned on January 7th after the attack on the Capitol, wrote a formal letter to you as Speaker of the House and to Senator Mitch McConnell as Senate Minority Leader. He turned a page. The letter was, by his account, his attempt to put on the record the series of requests he had made in the days before the 6th of January 2021 for National Guard support. The letter is 6 pages long. It is public record. It has been published in full by the Washington Post, the Associated Press, and Congressional records. He held the letter up. The camera zoomed in. In the letter, Chief Sund describes the following. I am reading directly from page 2 of the letter. He read, quote, On the 4th of January 2021, I formally requested that the Sergeant-at-Arms of the House of Representatives, Mr. 20W2, Paul Irving, contact the Department of Defense and request a National Guard deployment to the Capitol complex on January 6th. Mr. Irving informed me on the same day that he could not approve the request. He stated that the optics of having National Guard troops at the Capitol on January 6th were, and I am quoting his words to me, not acceptable. End quote. He set the letter down, looked at Pelosi. Madam Speaker, the Sergeant-at-Arms of the House of Representatives in January of 2021 reported directly to the Speaker of the House, which was you. He picked up the letter again, read further. Chief Sund continues, quote, I made the same request in different language on January 5th. I was again denied. I was told that the matter was being reviewed at the highest levels of House leadership." End quote. He set the letter down. "The highest levels of House leadership, Madam Speaker, in January of 2021, was your office." He let it sit. The hearing room was very quiet now. "Madam Speaker, the events of the 6th of January 2021. The country has watched the footage many times." He turned a page. "By the count of the United States Capitol Police, 140 Capitol Police officers were injured during the breach of the Capitol. 140 officers. Madam Speaker, bone fractures, concussions, head injuries, chemical burns, wounds that, by the Capitol Police's own documentation, will affect those officers for the rest of their lives." He let it sit. One officer, Officer Brian Sicknick, a New Jersey native, a 42-year-old man, a veteran of the National Guard, suffered 2 strokes on the evening of January 6th. He died on the evening of January 7th. One day after the attack, he paused. Officer Sicknick's mother, Mrs. Gladys Sicknick, has spoken publicly many times about her son. Mrs. Sicknick, by her own statements to congressional investigators, has said, and I am quoting her directly from her sworn statement to the January 6th Select Committee, quote, "If my son had been better protected, if there had been more officers in the building, he might still be alive. The decisions made before that day cost him his life." End quote. He set the letter down. "Madam Speaker, yes or no? On the 4th of January 2021, as Speaker of the House, did you receive a formal request through the Sergeant-at-Arms for National Guard deployment to the Capitol complex on January 6th? Pelosi adjusted her pearls. Her hand stayed at her collar for a moment. "Senator, the chain of command for Capitol security in January 2021 was complex. Madam Speaker, yes or no? Did you receive the request on January 4th? The request was made to the Sergeant-at-Arms who reported to me on certain matters. I cannot recall the specific date. Madam Speaker, yes or no? Did the request come to your office? The request was made within my chain of command. Yes. Thank you. Yes or no? Was the request denied? The request was denied by the Sergeant-at-Arms. Yes. Yes or no? Did you, as Speaker, override the denial? Senator, the Speaker does not, as a routine matter, override Sergeant-at-Arms operational decisions. Madam Speaker, yes or no? Did you, as Speaker, override the denial of the National Guard request? No, I did not override the denial. Yes or no? As of today, April 2024, 3 years and 3 months after Chief Sun's letter, has your office issued a formal written response to the questions Chief Sun posed in his the 1st of February 2021 letter? Senator, the matter has been examined by the January 6th Select Committee. Madam Speaker, yes or no? Has your office specifically issued a written response to Chief Sun's letter? No formal written response. No. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The hearing room was silent. The camera zoomed on Pelosi's face. This was the moment. Pelosi's right hand, which had been resting on her leather notebook for 43 minutes, lifted slightly, then dropped back down. The hand stayed on the notebook for 3 seconds, then drifted away. The leather notebook slipped from under her hand, fell forward onto the bench in front of her. The pages opened. The notebook landed open. The cameras caught the handwriting visible on the open pages. Her own handwriting, notes she had prepared for today's hearing. She did not pick the notebook up. The cameras held on the open notebook for a moment, then panned up to her face. The famous Pelosi smile broke. The tight-lipped corners of her mouth, which had held position through 37 years of difficult moments in American politics, slackened. The cheekbones tightened. The eyes went slightly wet, but did not cry. She tried to recover the smile. The corners of her mouth moved slightly, could not hold position. She tried again. The mouth opened slightly, closed. The smile did not return. The cameras zoomed tighter. 11 seconds passed. In 11 seconds, on national television, in front of 5.1 million live viewers, the iconic Pelosi smile that had carried Nancy Pelosi through 37 years of American politics, from her first House election in 1987, through her first speakership in 2007, through the SOTU tearing in 2020, through January 6th in 2021, the smile that had been her brand was gone. The notebook lay open on the bench. The smile did not return. In the wings, Jorge Aguilar closed her phone screen. She did not put the phone down. She held its screen down the way people hold phones when they realize the message discipline they have been hired to enforce has a structural flaw they had never been told about. 12 seconds. Cruz did not gloat. He picked up the hardcover book, closed it, set it down on the bench. The 37 yellow sticky notes were visible from the side of the closed book. Madam Speaker, your own words, page 223. The leader must answer publicly, completely, without evasion. A long silence followed. Officer Sicknick's mother is watching this hearing today, Madam Speaker. I have it on her own public statement. She is in New Jersey. She has waited 3 years and 3 months for someone to ask you this question on a federal microphone. He paused. The question is the question your own book wrote. In the moment when a leader's decision costs someone else their life, the leader must answer publicly, completely, without evasion. Officer Sicknick is the someone, Madam Speaker. Mrs. Sicknick is the answer you have not given. He looked at the closed book on the bench. Page 223. Your own page. Your own words. Comment 140 officers if you have ever in your life heard a senator from Texas. Read Nancy Pelosi's own book back to her about a Capitol Police officer, about a mother in New Jersey, about a letter that has never been answered. Share this with the police officer in your life. Share this with the mother in your life. Share this with the American who still believes leaders should answer publicly, completely, without evasion. Cruz picked up the hardcover book, held it up. The 37 yellow sticky notes fanned out from the side. The camera zoomed. Madam Speaker, one question. He let it sit. Across $30 million of stock trading, across one San Francisco hair salon, across 6 pieces of a State of the Union speech, across 140 injured Capitol Police officers, did you live by the words you wrote? The hearing room was silent. Pelosi's notebook lay open on the bench. The smile was still gone. Her hands rested on the bench. She did not pick the notebook up. The first second passed. The second, the third. She looked at her communications director. Jorge Aguilar was no longer looking at her. The fourth, the fifth, the sixth. She looked at the book in Cruz's hand, the 37 sticky notes, the handwriting in her own margins from 2008, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th. She cleared her throat, started to speak. Senator, the framing of this question reduces 3 decades of public service to Madam Speaker. Yes or no? Did you live by the words you wrote? Ill wait, Madam Speaker. Pelosi said nothing. Cruz nodded once. He picked up the hardcover book, set it down on the bench, opened to page 47. The first yellow sticky note visible. The chapter title visible, The Politics of Integrity. Mr. Chairman, I yield the remainder of my time. The book is entered into the record. The country can read it tonight. The chairman gave a 3-0-minute recess. Pelosi stood. She did not pick up her notebook. She gathered her papers slowly. Her hands moved deliberately. She did not look at Jorge Aguilar. She did not look at Cruz. She walked toward the side door. At the door, she turned. The cameras followed her. Cruz was still seated at the bench. The hardcover book was on the bench, open to page 47. The yellow sticky notes were visible. He was not looking at her. He was looking at the book. "Madam Speaker." She paused. "My door is open, Madam Speaker. Any time you bring your book back, we will go through the other 36 sticky notes. The country will wait." Cruz sat down the water glass. His voice dropped lower. "Your own words, Madam Speaker. Your own page. The book was always yours. You wrote it. The country today just read it." She did not respond. She walked out. The book stayed on the bench, open to page 47. The notebook stayed on the witness table, open. The handwriting visible. The door closed behind her with the kind of sound a heavy door makes when nobody on either side wants to slam it, but nobody wants to soften it either. The aftermath came fast. By 11:38 that morning, 4 hashtags had taken the top 4 trending positions on every American platform. Number your own words. Number page 2. 2-3. Number 3. 7 sticky notes. Number Officer Sicknick. The 5-3. Second clip of the Pelosi smile breaking was reposted to every major social media platform within 20 minutes of the recess. By sundown, the clip had passed 67 million views. The clip of Cruz closing the hardcover book on page 47, 8 seconds, no audio, passed 78 million. Pelosi's communications director released a statement at 114 that afternoon, 13 sentences. The statement used the word partisan 3 times. It used the phrase Republican retaliation twice. It used the phrase 3 decades of public service 4 times. It did not mention the Nvidia call options. It did not mention Erica Kius. It did not mention Officer Sicknick. That statement, in a way, was the entire scandal in 13 sentences. Because the woman who had been the longest-serving female speaker in American history had just spent 28 minutes of live television refusing to answer one simple question. Did you live by the words you wrote? And by sundown, her communications director had not put the question, the answer, or the absence of an answer into the public statement. This is the Democratic Party establishment in a single Tuesday morning. For 3 decades, Nancy Pelosi was sold to the American working class as the conscience of the Democratic Party, the advocate for women in leadership, the fighter for the middle class, the speaker who would, by the force of her experience, hold the institution of Congress to a higher standard. 3 decades later, the higher standard has become the documented record of contradictions between her own published words and her own documented actions. The $30 million in stock trading gains. The opposition to the Pelosi Act, the San Francisco hair salon during the lockdown her own city imposed. The blame of Erica Kius, the Vietnamese-American small business owner who lost her shop after the press got involved. The State of the Union speech, torn into 6 pieces on national television, the first speaker in 230 years. The Capitol Police National Guard request that was denied. The Chief Sund letter that has never been answered. Officer Brian Sicknick. Gladys Sicknick. The page 223 of her own book that says leaders must answer publicly, completely, without evasion. The Democratic Party establishment did not just betray the working class. The Democratic Party establishment, in the case of Speaker Pelosi, betrayed the American voter who picked up a copy of Know Your Power in 2008 and believed what the book said. The voter who believed that public service was a public trust. The voter who believed that integrity in public service was a prerequisite. The voter who believed that the leader follows the same rules as the led. The voter who believed that the institutions of American government depend on civic ritual. The voter who believed that the hardest test of leadership is when a leader's decision costs someone else their life. That voter was lied to, not by a single act, by 37 sticky notes worth of acts. Page by page, chapter by chapter, year by year. And the Democratic Party, watching all of this for 3 decades, said nothing. The party endorsed Speaker Pelosi for re-election 15 times. The party defended the stock trading in 2022 and 2023, when the Pelosi Act was introduced, and Pelosi opposed it. The party defended the Salon visit in 2020. The party celebrated the SOTU tearing as principled defiance. The party never asked publicly why Chief Son's letter remained unanswered 3 years after January 6th. Every Democratic leader in Washington, when given the choice between Speaker Pelosi and the words she had published in her own book, chose chose the brand, chose the legacy, chose the seat in the chamber, and the American voter who picked up the book in 2008 and believed it paid the bill. The bill was paid in $30 million of family stock trading gains. In one small business shutting down in San Francisco, in one speaker tearing one speech on national television, in one Capitol Police chief writing one unanswered letter, in one mother in New Jersey who has waited 3 years and 3 months for an answer. The speaker from California walked out of the Russell Senate office building at 1214 that afternoon. Her notebook did not walk with her. It stayed on the witness table, open. The black SUV at the curb did not know where to take her. Neither did she. The driver, after 23 minutes of circling the Capitol, finally asked, "Madam Speaker, where to?" She did not answer. Because there was no answer. There is no road in the United States of America today that takes a former Speaker of the House home from a hearing where her own book has just been read back to her. Page by page, sticky note by sticky note, by a senator from Texas with one hardcover book and 37 yellow tabs. In hearing room 255 of the Russell Senate office building on a Tuesday morning, the country read the book. The speaker from California and the Democratic Party establishment that protected her for 30 straight years could not, on a federal microphone, answer yes or no to whether she lived by the words she wrote. If you made it this far, you just heard the morning a senator from Texas sat across from the longest-serving female speaker in American history and read her own book back to her, page by page, with 37 yellow sticky notes from a hardcover copy of Know Your Power, published in 2008. The book had no Republican think tank annotations. The book had no opposition research. The book had no conservative media commentary. The book was Nancy Pelosi's book, with Nancy Pelosi's words about Nancy Pelosi's standards for public service. The speaker refused to answer whether she lived by them. Her notebook fell open on the bench. Her smile broke. She walked out. The country watched. Smash that like button if you believe a hardcover book with the villain's own words still beats a press release. Subscribe if you want to see what happens to the rest of the Democratic Party establishment in the months ahead. Comment your own words if you think the question, "Did you live by the words you wrote?" just became the most devastating 8 words in American political television. Share this with the small business owner in your life, the American who watched San Francisco shut down while the speaker did not. Share this with your Capitol Police officer in your life, the officer who remembers January 6th. Share this with the mother in New Jersey who is still waiting for an answer. Tonight, Madam Speaker, when you set your pearls on the dresser in front of your bedroom mirror, the country wants you to know it watched your smile break. The country wants you to know it heard the Chief Son's letter read aloud. The country wants you to know it saw the 37 sticky notes. The country tonight, Madam Speaker, has only one question left. The book, Madam Speaker, the pages you wrote, the chapters you titled, The standards you set in your own hand in 2008. Did you live by them? Yes or no? Your own words, Madam Speaker. Your own page. The book is on the bench. The country is reading.